So our next speaker is Ben Johnson from Gruvi. And Gruvi is a social technology company, and they basically help entertainment brands to innovate and, in the mobile and social space. He's not in the program, so apologies for that. But yes, so Ben is going to talk to you, and then after that, we're going to bring back the guys from the Service Innovation Tank, who are just showing up there. We're just gonna. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. So in the meantime, maybe let's just wait until they get.
Sure.
They all get in. I don't want to interrupt your. Yeah, they're going to be noisy. Maybe. Sorry. They're going to be noisy.
Okay.
So okay. Or maybe they don't make too much noise. Should we just go? Okay. All right. Sorry.
No problem. Hi, everyone. That was a very interesting lecture by Alex. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was very interesting to see the whole industrial side of design. I'm in a startup, so when Alex was talking about billions of dollars being thrown at this, we're operating typically on very, very lean budgets to try and identify where our next pay packet or opportunity for business is coming. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story with my company, where we looked at our design process, the whole design process, and actually used it to pivot into other areas where we saw an opportunity for making cash. So we started off as a startup from Startup Bootcamp, which is a seed fund in Copenhagen. And our pitch was very much centered at big data for big entertainment brands. And typically what happens with an entertainment brand is that they're not really that focused on who their user is, and they're missing some very, very vital key questions about that user, their interests, and potentially what they could be representing to that person in the future to make their communication more efficient and to sell more of their content. So we came up with a system whereby we would work within the social app space. We would take user data, we would analyze it with our algorithms, we would join the dots between their communication channels and between the different apps that they were powering themselves for each film or TV show that they were working on. We would take the data that was happening within the application, and then we would use that to personalize the content the brand was showing to the user, and also to make the communication much more streamlined. And then we started to run out of money. And the simple reason for that was we weren't selling what the brand was actually really interested in buying. We were about 5 or 6 years ahead of our time. But it was good, because we got this dialogue going with the client. We were in constant discussions with them, but what actually we encountered was a complete resistance within the business model of most entertainment brands are just simply not geared towards thinking about the long-term future. They're geared towards thinking about what's going to happen with my piece of content that I'm working on in 6 months, a year's time. But they liked us, and they kept on giving us chances. And we got a tap on the back one day from a major client, and they basically said, like, out of the blue, we're now spending a lot of money on Facebook, and social marketing is becoming incredibly important for us, and you guys look like you're in the right kind of place to help. Go out, come back, and give us some ideas about how you could potentially work with us. Now, we were geared up as a big data company from a startup's perspective. And so the first thing we looked at was the whole approach towards point of sale. Now, most film marketing campaigns are about awareness, cost per impression, cost per click, and there's very little that we'd seen in any of the film marketing campaigns that was actually really towards driving a bum on a seat, to actually getting someone to purchase a ticket. So we looked through a variety of different global showtimes providers. We aggregated this data. We used our own algorithms to go out and start mining to see how far we could push a user into an experience. And we found out that in most countries, we could drop a user from a showtimes click into the cinema at the right time, on the right day, for the right film, to buy a ticket. So we went back to the studios. We said, OK, we think we have this. This looks interesting. And we started working on these things called fan page tabs, which is a very typical way that films are marketed. And it wasn't particularly interesting work. I mean, it certainly gave us the opportunity to go out and start trialing our products, but we were very much a bolt-on service to the campaigns that were already in existence. And we did some analysis, and we started to see some quite interesting things. So the timeline was announced in Facebook about a year and a half ago, and we saw a massive drop-off in the effectiveness in tabs. And so we started talking to the brands again and saying, look, I think there's an opportunity for us to do something for you here. So we came back with this player ad unit, and here's a short video of what this is about. What we're doing is we're dropping the key creative, which is usually the trailer, and the key artwork, and the showtimes, into one unit that works within Facebook's timeline and newsfeed. And the premise for this was, we can hit the user at the right time with an announcement about a ticket within their newsfeed and allow them in one click to go and book the ticket. Of course, the nice thing about this and working within Facebook is it also means that we can get this working within Facebook's ads. So this was really good from a media perspective, because quite often when you're working on the creative side with studios, you're off in one little silo, and the other big silo, which is the media spend, is completely separated from the technology. So now we've created this way, I guess you would call it an interesting ad unit, to actually start deploying ad money at this unit that then drives sales. So here's a sort of brief overview of a campaign that we did in Denmark for the Scandinavian regions. It's a relatively small film. Because we're hitting the user at the right time with the right kind of context, we are seeing sort of conversion rates of between 5 and 25% of people exiting from our apps and going into the right page at the right time on the cinema, with a very low drop-off if they're doing anything else within our widgets. And it's consistent across the performance of the campaigns that we've been working on. So this was obviously deemed to be a great success with the likes of Warner and Sony. And we were very, very happy about that. We, as a startup, had some regular cash coming into our account, which allowed us to then go out and start improvising and designing other things for them. And obviously, the next step was jumping straight into cross-platform, making sure this stuff works on mobile, making sure it works within every environment, looking at other social media. And if anyone has a smartphone, you can type in the link above, and you can actually look at the widget working in real time right now. Final stage was, this was a good tool for the major brands. What we're now looking at is taking it into a content management system that gives the smaller players the opportunity to play around with these tools, to within minutes of using our system, to be able to go out there and create their own ad units for their own films or TV programs without us being an intermediary. And this still will be handled in minutes so that they can actually hand over those assets to their media teams, who can then go out and start to market it. They're sitting on their dashboards, and they can track everything. So that's a little story about our journey. What's been very, very interesting from the design perspective for us is that we're operating on a tiny budget, on a tiny scale, and constantly having to be incredibly efficient with the things that we're working with. And so we use a variety of cloud-based tools to make sure that these important pieces of learning are tracked. We use Basecamp for project monitoring. We use Highrise for contact management. We use Google Docs for making sure communication and planning is going well between us. And if we're working on projects, things are communicated, because we are in 7 different countries as a company now. And it's just not possible for us to get together for meetings and conferences. We actually have to use things like Skype and join meeting, And we found these tools to be incredibly useful. But the really, really useful thing for us as a small company is this idea of Scrum. Now, I'm from the commercial background, and I never really understood this until I started doing it on almost a daily basis. But every morning at 9:30 a.m., we all jump on a call together, and it's sales, our design team, our programmers, everyone is there, and we have 10 minutes to get to the point. So if there's something that's important that needs to be said, it's managed within a very short period of time. The point is made, it's recorded within our Scrum notes, and something is actioned from it. And then we use these tools like Pivotal Tracker, which is, from a technology perspective, the projects or the ideas get broken down into stories, so the developer team knows why they're doing these projects and what they're building towards, and the whole team can be updated. We've got Zendesk, which sits in the middle of pretty much everything that we do, which allows us to build live QA systems and gives us the ability to collect feedback from the tools that we're deploying, both with users and with our clients. And then we use Trello as almost like a front-end project management system to just get these deployments out to our customers and make sure that everything works. So that's a very, very short overview on what we do. It's not a massive scale, but from a small project's perspective, we find these tools incredibly useful for making sure that day-to-day goes smoothly and the projects turn into profitable and valuable enterprises for the people that are involved. Thank you very much.
So much, Ben. So, audience. Oh, Stefan? That was fast.
Thank you very much. I'm just curious, it sounds a little bit like you're stumbling your way forward, designing around, trying to find angles and make sense of it. Do you have some kind of North Star, some vision, something that holds you together and gets you sort of moving vaguely in the same direction?
Yeah, so the big data idea, although it's off the table right now, is, we've spent 2.5 years building, these widgets and applications to make sure this stuff actually works. So it is still the North Star for us, but we didn't raise funding, and the only way that we could keep going as an organization was to work out how to be commercial. And so our North Star is all that work is still sitting on the back end of everything that we do. So if anyone joins any of our applications and the client's interested, or has commissioned us to do that work, we also have the ability to go in, get that user's permission, and then interrogate them in the right kind of way so we can figure out what they might be interested in watching next. But it's funny because we've had 6 different pitches in the last 3 years. And there is a little bit of a follow-the-sun mentality that you develop as a small project, as we are. But it never hurts to be that lean. And when you have situations where projects aren't working, it's still learning. So although we did a 1.5 years of big data and trying to sell to major brands about this idea of getting to know their users better, what it actually ended up making us very, very good at was going through large amounts of data and very quickly coming down to what are the key points. So the Cinema project wouldn't have been possible without that.
Okay, great. Hope that answers your question. Okay, great. Any more questions from the audience? No? Okay, great. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.